Thank you. Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, good start. Okay, so I hope you all had a good coffee break. We're going to test it soon, but let's get started. So my name is Pankaj. I lead data sciences at Publicis. And this session is called Predict With Me because it's not a scenario where I share predictions and it's one-way traffic. So what we're going to do today is you're going to help me predict trends for 2023. So I'm going to present a provocation. I'll share a statement. There are going to be 8 of them today. You'll share your point of view, and there's a live poll element. So for a change, you'll get to use your phones because none of us has done that so far today. And then I'll share our take as publicists, and I'll explain it briefly. Is that clear? Yeah? Good. I also want to state like a little bit of a caveat. This is like the terms and conditions that we say okay to on every website. I want to caveat that these are not just predictions specific to 2023. These are things that we think are worth considering starting 2023. And we think that these will have an impact on how we plan and how we put resources in the future. So, take it with that grain of salt. Okay, with that, let's start. So first, I'm going to ask you to scan a QR code, join the poll, and then we get started. So that's the QR code that I want you guys to scan. If you, especially the back of the room, if you can't reach it, it's slido.com, and then join the code 2897685. Show of hands for people who see some kind of a screen. That table doesn't count. We have paid them to be here. And we'll be able to see how many of you are here. I think there are like 100 people. So just everyone, please, if you can take a minute. And I've agreed with Austin that time with logistics doesn't count. It's like crypto. It has no value. All right. So let's get started. We're going to start with a test run. Okay. So I ate too much in that coffee break and won't make it through your session. This should pop up on your screens right now. You guys see it? Okay, go for it. What? Okay. 17 to 17% of you? Okay, let's get started. So it's working. There are 77 people involved, so that's good. We can go ahead. Okay, so let's get started. So I'll start with the first provocation for 2023, and that is that 2023 will be the year of blank as a service. In this case, I want you guys to help me fill that blank. Okay, so we have most of the votes here. Right, so 2023 will be the year of blank as a service. You guys voted, and our viewpoint as publicists is everything as a service. So I guess we are all sheep. We are going in the same direction. But a couple of points on why we think 2023 will be the year of everything as a service. And some of it might sound outlandish, but just bear with me. So Gen Z, which is an audience that we love talking about, and we see a lot of studies about them, and we know many things about them. But one thing we know is that they will have a bigger impact on the economy in the coming years. We're talking about movement from $7 billion that they spend today in the GCC region to $53 billion in 2025. So that's a 7-fold growth in the next 3 years. Now, of course, because they have a bigger impact on the economy, we got to pay attention to them. What we know about them is they don't like to put their roots down anywhere. They're digital nomads. They don't like to invest in things that require big investment and holds them back, like a house or a car. And so automatically that begs the question that everything as a service needs to be available to them. So you have had the likes of Uber, but you also know young people who actually use Uber exclusively for mobility and not just so they don't own cars anymore. Airbnbs was supposed to be an alternative to hotels, but people who live longer term in Airbnbs, and that's how life is. So Everything as a service is something that is inspired by that. What we'll see is for sectors that already have servicization, we'll see a growth in that. But you'll have a lot of sectors that don't have servicization enter that, and that's our prediction for 2023. Now, let's stick to the car example. What does that mean for us? Like, why am I even talking about this today? So let's say that in the auto industry, you have a lot of people using cars as a service. That means that maybe for our clients, we need to consult them on a fleet sales strategy for next year instead of an end consumer strategy, because that's probably where more of their volume will grow. So maybe B2B channels become more important. Or let's shift the dynamic. Why are we focusing on this audience that doesn't want to buy our product? Let's go back to the millennials who we used to spend money on, but we took money away from that audience to focus on Gen Z. These people in a year are older, but they have more money, and they'll probably want to buy a product. Cool? So that's our first provocation for 2023. Moving on to the second one. In 2023, planners will be planning across a new screen, the screen in your car. And this image is not like a graphic. This is an actual image of the i7, which has been recently launched by BMW. And this is the screen available in that car. What do you guys think? Okay, most people have voted. So 33, a third of people don't think so. Well, sorry to say, we disagree. So in 2023, you'll be planning across a new screen in your car, and that's our viewpoint. You bet we'll be planning across a new screen. And there are a couple of reasons why we are so bullish on this, right? So I think the first one, let me get it out of the way, is the autonomous car market growth. So what we are seeing that double in the coming years. I think in the US, it's something like $62 billion by 2026. So you're going to have a lot of cars which are driving themselves, and people have nothing to do. So what am I going to do except like watch and catch up on the latest episode of a Wednesday or whatever I'm watching? But besides the people, and the UAE is keeping track of this because it's a futuristic place we live in. So there's already legislation being drafted around smart autonomous mobility strategy. So they expect by 2030, 25% of all cars will be autonomous. So we'll have a lot of people doing that, and good luck with Sheikh Road and autonomous cars. But what about the rest of us who won't be driving those? The rest of us also have passengers, co-passengers, kids probably, spouses, and friends who are used to the big screens in Teslas. And so they will expect that entertainment element. And automotive players are already putting that hardware in. So we have the big screens in the BMWs coming up. So I think the hardware already exists. What we are seeing is a big move towards owning the content and the software side of it as well. So a couple of quotes here. Mercedes announced the launch of Zinc earlier this year, which is a video streaming on-demand content platform. So clearly, they don't want to lose out on the incremental advertising revenue that this trend will bring. BMW previewed a future of in-car entertainment at CES, which is the theater screen that's compatible with the Amazon Fire Stick, and you can watch things at 8K resolution. So, I mean, I don't think people are going to be watching traffic anymore with that kind of trend. So our viewpoint is, yes, you will be planning across a new screen in the coming year. Okay, so moving on to provocation number 3. In 2023, chatbots and messaging will take over customer service. I'm sorry for the Gen Z language. It's an intern helping me. Okay, so most of us think totes. Chatbots and messaging will be taken over. Chatbots and messaging will be taken over, customer service, and we agree. That's our viewpoint as well. Why do we say that? So a couple of reasons, but let me refer to the stat I talked about in terms of the growth of Gen Z and their investment in the region in the coming years. And if that is happening, obviously you're going to have a lot more engagement of all these e-commerce and as service-based businesses. And the best way to scale customer service for them, the cheapest way, the fastest way to do it is using chatbots. I mean, we already interact with a lot of chatbots. Let me throw a couple of stats on that. A Gartner survey estimates that 54% of all consumers in the US, this is, but we are similar markets in that sense, used a chatbot in the previous month, and this is only expected to go up. Combine that with the fact that the conversational AI market is growing at 22% every year. And so automatically you can see the trend going towards more and more of this. I mean, it saves money for brands and for businesses that operate in this space, so why not? The scale will tip in 2023, in our opinion, and we are putting a stake in the ground that 70% of all similar businesses will actually use a chatbot for customer service by the end of the year. Okay, moving on to provocation number 4. In 2023, the GCC will produce a disproportionate amount of technological innovation in most sectors, including Marcomms. Okay, so I can see most people are drinking the same Kool-Aid that we have drank. So we do think that in 2023, GC will produce a disproportionate amount of tech innovation. And I want to stress on the word disproportionate here. A couple of reasons why. So I mean, across the GCC, you have sovereign wealth funds, which have all these petrodollars that they are now investing back into the economy so that we don't have a recession, at least like the rest of the world. So I think that part everyone is aware of. A big part of this is being invested or will be invested with them acting as VCs so that they can invest in startups that have good valuations, so you can cash out. So let's get that part out of the way. Why disproportionate is because the rest of the world is actually expected to scale back in the coming year. So here you have this small region with I don't know how many % of the world's population investing a lot more in this space. And automatically that's an attractive proposition for anyone who is building a company, a founder, or someone who is in the startup space to actually come here and get funding easily. So this is why we think it'll be a disproportionate amount of innovation coming out of this year. What that means for us, in some cases, it might be a first mover advantage, especially for the agency groups that deal with a lot of tech. It might be good acquisition targets in some cases. So this is something mindful to keep in mind for us as well. Okay, so the next one, and this is much closer to home for me since I work in data sciences, is the MarTech ecosystem will continue growing and becoming more complex in 2023. Okay, so see, we are all sheep because that's definitely not our point of view. So we don't think the MarTech ecosystem is actually going to continue growing. And I wanted to say, I could have easily said that the MarTech ecosystem will shrink, but I just wanted to have the chance to say no way, Jose, on screen. So that's great. So we say no way, Jose, like it should not and it cannot continue to grow the way it has been growing, and a few reasons for that. The main reason is that agency groups are increasingly finding it very expensive to remain tech agnostic. It's a great thing to say to a client. It's a great thing to say in a pitch. It's a very difficult thing to pull off. You need a lot of investment to train a lot of people across a lot of different tech platforms, and it's not easy. So we've been doing it so far, but as we actually end up having dominant tech platforms in each space, you'll see us, at least as an industry, going after those, consolidating with them. And what that means is if you consolidate with fewer tech platforms, automatically the ones who are smaller don't get funding, automatically they get shrunk, they get consolidated or they die. So we think that the trend of the MarTech ecosystem is that it's actually going to go towards shrinking. All right, so the next provocation is by the end of 2023, each one of us will have an average of 10 loyalty apps on our phones. People don't like loyalty apps. So all the Publicis people, or ex-Publicis. Gibran, we'll meet in the parking lot. Okay, so most of you think, no, that won't be a case. Of course, why are we talking about it? Because we think that will be the case, right? And the reason for this is, I think, what we saw as a business in the last couple of years. So 21, especially 2020 onwards, we saw huge growth in clients' investment from a CRM perspective. So deploying CRM platforms, upgrading their CRM platforms, just anything really to get in touch with the customer to be able to know them. A lot of it comes from the looming death of cookies and the first-party data that you need to have collected. But really, people want to get in touch with the customers. But so far, this has been very one-way communication. You have information at an ID level, you use it to communicate with customers, great. Sooner or later, this is not going to work anymore, and this is why you're seeing clients and brands move towards loyalty platforms and investment in that. And as they go towards loyalty platforms, the easiest way, and if you see the POS systems today, and when you go to a Landmark Group store, an apparel group store, most of them are on apps because that's what the POS technology is today. So you'll see a lot more of these apps coming on board in the coming year. The thing is, and somebody might ask, why not aggregate it? Is there an opportunity? Why do we need to have all these loyalty platforms? I mean, we are still new in this space, in this region, in most of the world, but the legislation around this is still fresh. So no one is going to be comfortable sharing ID-level data with a third-party aggregator just yet. So we are going to see a lot more apps. You'll have a lot of loyalty labs on your phone, whether you like it or not. And yeah, that's the future in this space. All right. Moving on to provocation number 7. 2023 will see us in the GCC Marcomms community become trilingual. So it won't be just English and Arabic anymore. We'll need to think about a third language when we are developing assets. No points in guessing what language? That means yes. Okay, I'll move on. Most people have voted. So our viewpoint is yes. We think that there'll be a third language that we will need to think of in 2023. Now, we're not saying that will be Russian. It could be Mandarin. But you have a lot of audiences or a lot of expats that have moved to GCC in the last few years, and that'll continue happening from these language markets. Now, of course, this is nothing new to us, right? We have used to seeing big groups of Russian-speaking or Mandarin-speaking people in the Middle East in the past. But they have been coming here as tourists, which means that it's enough to have the Russian-speaking staff or the Mandarin-speaking staff in the Gucci store to actually manage business. But that won't be the case anymore because these are residents now. And with enough numbers and enough purchasing power, suddenly there are segments that marketeers are actually interested in going after. So that means that we are getting briefs on those audience segments. We need to make sure we have SEO strategy around that. We have a content creation strategy around that. We create our digital assets in those languages. So this is something to think about that we might need to invest in as marketeers in 2023. Cool? All right, so that brings me to the last prediction of the day. And I still have 1.5 minutes. That's great. In a year's time, I'm predicting 2024 trends on the stage. I hope not. It was very nerve-wracking, but Gibran, hope not will be you, I know. All right. Thank you. My viewpoint is inshallah. Thank you for your time.